Hello and welcome back to the I'm Glad You're Here podcast. My name is Greg Sharp and this episode is Meghan Nyeste. Meghan is just one of my dearest friends in comedy. I can't wait for you to meet her. I think we giggled most of this episode. We just had so much fun recording this in my studio in Dexter. It's been a couple of weeks since I released some episodes, and this episode is why. I'm still learning how to use my equipment and my editing software. Recording on multiple cameras is more trouble than I expected. And hopefully, I think I've got my system down now, so I should be able to start churning out episodes a little bit more frequently. It just took me a few weeks to get the system in place, and I think you're really going to enjoy what we have coming up. We have a whole bunch of episodes already in the can, and I'll start getting those out to you in short order. Thank you all so much for all the support you've given this podcast so far. Please continue to like and subscribe, share with your friends, and leave comments and reviews wherever you listen to this podcast or wherever you watch it, whether it's YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Whatever format you use, please continue to like and subscribe, leave comments, leave reviews. All of that goes a long way towards helping this podcast reach as many ears and eyes as possible. And I thank you all so much in advance for all of that, all the support you've given me so far, all the feedback I've received. I really appreciate all of that, so thank you all so much. But without further ado, I can't wait for you to meet her. Here's Meghan Nyeste. Meghan Nyeste, I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad you're still here. Because this is take two. I'm so glad we didn't get that far in
and when you were like,
before I realized that everything...
record.
We should probably have hit record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doggone it.
I'm glad we realized that too.
That is so funny. Well, that's what you get for being here at the beginning on the ground floor.
It's a very exciting time to be here.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do everything all over again. Everything is going to sound the same.
Okay.
Because we're just going to have the same conversation that we just had for the last 5 minutes.
That's fine.
But yeah, this is my stupid studio.
It is stupid.
It is.
There's so much. Like I said, it's a great place to murder someone.
It really is. Okay, the whole room is soundproofed.
Oh,
and
cool.
Like when I moved in, I thought that I was going to be the one that would be like bugging the neighbors.
No.
Because like all of the people in the building are like therapists, and there's a tutor next door. But I've been doing all of the episodes like later in the evenings when everybody's already gone. But the other rooms around me, like the therapists, all put white noise machines outside of their doors.
Yep.
So that nobody can snoop from the outside. So I'm the quiet one.
Which is surprising.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't actually.
No, I moved in here to try and give myself a space to do graphic design because I was sick of working from home. It just wasn't working for me.
Oh yeah, that's.
So I just rented this little tiny room, and then like a month and a half later, there's 4 cameras and
black curtains everywhere and soundproof things,
soundproofed
and lights and
So like with anything I do,
you go hard. You go hard.
But it doesn't. I don't know if I intend to do it all the time,
Sure.
but that's just the way it ends up.
It just ends up.
So like when people would come to do my show.
Oh yeah.
It would be like, oh, this is like the best open mic ever.
Absolutely, it was.
Because I'm stupid. Because I gave myself a job.
You pushed
every Tuesday.
You put everything into it though, which is why I think that mic was so successful. People loved it.
Well, yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Besides
like the
you,
effort,
probably.
I loved doing it for a while, but like the effort of doing an open mic
every week,
every Tuesday,
that entire setup,
setting
that you
up
had.
and tearing down every week,
like
nobody else should do that. Like that should be a warning. Like if you want to do a great show, you can do a great show.
But it's going to take a lot of work.
But it's going to ruin you.
Yeah. It's going to break you emotionally.
Which is exactly where I was. So like that show ended. I did a couple of paid shows in the middle of last year.
Yes.
But I don't even really count those as being like part of the
Sure.
main show because like those were all like standalone one-off shows.
Yeah.
But like everything else, like as soon as I stopped doing it, I like the emptiness I felt.
Sure.
Because my whole life was like revolving around this one open mic on
Yeah.
Tuesdays. And once I had that night available, well, first of all, the world opened up.
You're like, I can do other mics.
Right. So I did that, but also like the emptiness it felt of like whenever it felt like a death.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about like all the work you put into it, you were doing it every single week for more than a year.
Yeah.
And like, it is like a death.
Yeah.
You had to go through a grieving process.
So like I was ready for it to die.
Yeah.
But also like there was a grieving process that went along with it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just it played into my depression for last year, which
Yeah,
by
I hear
the
you
end
there.
of the year it was like, okay, Greg, you need to get back on with your life.
Let's
and
get something going.
Let's get out of the house. Maybe stop watching so much
Maybe
TV.
let's
Put on
shower.
something other. We'll
Yeah.
definitely start showering and
That's
stop
a
wearing
hard one.
sweatpants to Meyer.
You went into Meyer? I don't go in anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I don't like doing that. I'm not a. Well, first of all, I feel bad for the person that has to shop for me because there's so much judgment with
Sure.
with the way that they select my groceries.
Like
'Cause
they gave me the bad apples. this
Right,
time.
like don't they know how to shop for fucking apples?
Yes.
Who are these people
I
that
got
they would
moldy
walk around the
buns
store?
once.
Yeah, it's like what the hell?
Yeah. I don't know, man.
No,
I still do it though.
like if I was in there working, obviously I'm not working at Meijer for a reason, right?
But
Like,
if you were,
I like to judge people that are doing things differently than I would do them, even though I'm unwilling to do them.
sure. Well, if I was,
But that's
working
like
there,
that's
then-
literally why I have to go in and do my own shopping.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm experiencing this a lot lately, and this is my curmudgeon self coming out. When I pull up to the McDonald's window and they're
Mhm.
like, "Did you use our mobile app?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." That's why
I'm here.
That's why I'm here.
What the hell?
And like, are there people really doing that, or is that just their way of badgering us into doing it?
I don't know. I feel like sometimes those greetings are like pre-recorded though,
Uh-huh.
because they're always a different voice than the person taking my order typically.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, because I think it's just like, oh, corporate has said we have to do this. So,
Yeah.
like, they have to ask. Like, when they have a new limited time offer or something, they're like, would you like to try our McRiblet this week, today?
It's not like I'm making plans to go to McDonald's. I just saw on
No.
the sign that the McFlurry was, or the
Shamrock Shake.
Shamrock Shakes are back. I was like, I'm going to
Yeah,
McDonald's.
exactly. Do a big Yui in the middle
And
of
it's
the
like, did you use our
intersection.
mobile app? No, I didn't use your mobile
No.
app. I nearly took out 3 pedestrians to get here.
Hey, they were in the way. It's their fault.
They were keeping me from the Shamrock Shake.
I need
Limited.
it.
I like how the Shamrock Shake is a limited time only.
Yes, it's just mint,
It's just mint.
but it's green.
I-
And people go ape shit for it.
Okay, but it's still really dumb.
I
It
know.
has to be.
I know.
But also, like,
What would be cooler is if they just like switched it up and did like, oh, this is just our peppermint shake.
Right,
Like our
right.
normal peppermint shake. And then like for those few weeks out of the year, they just dye it green.
Yeah,
Like,
that would make more sense to me. I understand the McRib. Like, I
Yeah.
read somewhere that if they did the McRib every year, we would run out of pigs in like 2 years.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
So they have to space out how often they do the McRib.
Oh my
Otherwise,
God.
they would ruin pork futures.
Good
So
Lord.
I know.
There's
like,
so many better pork products than a McRib though.
I'm not a McRib person, so
me either, but
people love it.
ugh, ugh.
I know. Don't deprive me
Oh.
of bacon though. I've also
Yeah.
heard the same thing. They used to do the salads. Do they still do salads? It's been so long since
Not
I've
at
ordered a
McDonald's.
McDonald's a salad. Okay.
No.
Well, I used to get the McDonald's salads. They used to
Yeah.
have a really good chicken salad.
Yes.
And they said that if they had, like, people kept asking for a shrimp salad.
Oh.
And if McDonald's decided to do a shrimp salad, it would empty the oceans
Oh
of shrimp. The shrimp population could not keep up with the McDonald's demand.
Well, do you think they would get ocean shrimp or would they do farm raised? I feel like farm raised is safer. I don't know, man.
I don't. Is
The-
it?
the
Or
world-
would they use
the
like
world's
real
just-
shrimp, or would they use like the imitation shrimp, like the crab with a K?
Yeah, K-Rab.
K-
Crab.
Crab.
Um,
Which is not bad.
No, it's great. It's just fish.
I think.
like,
It's, yeah.
but it's not real crab.
Like whenever I go to a Mongolian barbecue, I'm like, who are they trying to fool with that misspelled crab?
It's like the time I worked a banquet. I worked, and it was an event at the university, and we had Swedish meatballs, and they were labeled as sweet-ish, Sweetish. They're Swedish.
Sweetish.
You know.
It's like, is that sugar? Did they put sugar in my meatballs? Well, it's not. It's not real sugar.
Are they sweet and sour? What is this?
It's like Splenda
We were like,
meatballs.
we need to change this sign right now. Please go get your manager. We need to change this right now.
I love misspelled
This is a
signs.
university, okay? This is an institution of higher education. What are we doing with this?
It raised so many questions.
It's just, the country of sweet.
I just, like the person who made that sign was like, oh, Swedish.
Swedish.
Swedish. It's from Sweden.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
the chef is from Sweden. He doesn't cook sweet things. He's from Sweden.
Like that person immediately dropped out of school. It's like I can't show my face here anymore.
Yes, it was embarrassing.
I love it so much.
I know, misspelled signs, man. My greatest.
Well, I'm a graphic designer by trade.
Yes.
So like I notice everything. I notice like when apostrophes are facing the wrong direction.
Or why
like
there's an apostrophe there for no reason.
There's no reason for an apostrophe.
People put an apostrophe S on things that don't need an apostrophe S. Like paninis. I saw that today. It said panini.
This one belongs to Mr. Panini.
I know. I was like, who does the panini belong to?
This is Panini's sandwich.
But I'm sure, because I have done editing and like copywriting and stuff like that. So I noticed that stuff too. But like as a graphic designer, you probably see like lines and different shades of things that just drive you bonkers.
Well, and I don't know why I do this to myself. I was a film major, film, radio, and TV.
Yeah.
In school. So, like, I learned how to watch movies the same way, looking for mistakes. I'm like, oh, there's a boom mic in the frame.
Yep.
Like, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Wait, there were 3 pieces of cake there first, and now there's 5. Somebody didn't do a check.
So I keep giving myself these, like, everything I've done along my life has been just a way to accentuate the OCD nature of my brain. It's like, I'm going to find everybody's mistakes nonstop. And now I get to be a comedian, which is basically just pointing out everybody else's mistakes.
Yeah. I point out my own usually.
Yeah, I've been doing that a lot too. But like that curmudgeon part of myself.
What's the deal with all these apostrophes?
What's the deal? Well, okay, so I've been starting to record myself having
a rant.
Like when I feel myself ranting in the car.
Yes, you start recording yourself.
I will start recording myself.
Yes, very smart.
You're going to hear me do a bit tonight at the Blind Pig that is basically just me driving home from Traverse City, ranting about the car in front of me. And it's one of my favorite things because I'm leaning into it because I'm getting older. I'm 46, but I feel like 87.
You're so old.
Yeah, but I can't wait to be like, oh, get off my lawn.
I mean, you could do that now.
I can. I have a lawn.
Well, there's that. It's also pretty cold outside still, but
no, I've started to really enjoy being that person on stage because. Yeah. Well, first of all, like no matter who you're performing in front of, it's going to go one of 2 ways. First of all, you'll have the older crowds that will love it and also relate to it on a very personal level. I don't know, it's me too. But I love performing in front of the younger crowds.
Yes. Like
the one that we'll perform in front of tonight.
Yes.
Where it's all very pointed. Basically, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the under 30s. So it's
This is pointed directly at you. I'm going to make eye contact. Were you born, if you were not born in this century?
Do you remember, the first time we hung out was, I think, at the Blind Pig. Because
I think so.
I remember you walking up to me, and it was somebody else. It might have been Drew Harmon. And you said, is this where the over 40s are standing? And I was like... Yeah. This is pretty much it.
I could tell. You guys have a vibe.
We all smell like, mothballs and Metamucil.
I mean, 40s again, not so old,
In
but
comedy terms,
in comedy, you were ancient.
We feel so old.
Yes, comedy it's not very conducive to an older person who maybe has a family and kids, that type of thing. But
I think they think that. I completely disagree.
Yeah.
Because it's a perfect escape.
Oh, that's why I do it.
Yeah. Like I completely understand
Yes.
how like you have 2 young children at home.
Yes.
And you're like,
get me the F out of here. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
Get me out of here.
But like as it's an evening activity.
Yeah. So sometimes I can leave like after bedtime.
Uh-huh.
But then also I'm like, they get me up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So if an open mic starts at 10 o'clock, I'm like, I'm going to make some decisions here tonight. Right. And I have to think about that for the next day.
I think about how my life was run by Little League.
Oh, yeah.
For 17 years.
Yeah.
I had 3 boys that played Little League.
I was going to say all 3 of them went through, right?
Nonstop. Yeah. And it was like, sure, there was mostly in the summertime, but then there would be like fall leagues and winter workouts, and it was just nonstop.
Yeah.
And if I had been doing comedy back then...
No, you wouldn't have had any time.
Well, they would have all been playing video games instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, my kids are just starting to get into, like, the activities. So we have some stuff on, like, Saturdays. We do dance once a week. But now they're starting to, like, have friends and do things. So it's going to be... I know I'm in for a ride these next few years.
Yeah.
All the activities.
When I was a kid... When I was a kid, like, my mom and dad had all of these, like, planned nights out where we would be left with a babysitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And my dad would go to, like, bowling league or whatever.
Yep.
And I don't know what it was. When I had young kids, my life was planned around their lives.
Yes.
For some reason, it's been a lot different.
It's so...
We were just planted in front.
True.
We were planted in front of a television. And we're like, sorry, we're going to be gone.
Oh, I remember my parents leaving all the time.
All the time.
I had a great babysitter. Rosemary was one. We had, like, Ben. We had a guy babysitter for a while. Like, eventually my parents were like, your brother's old enough to watch you. I remember babysitting other kids when I was, like, 12.
Yeah, that's bananas.
Like, what the F? Like, you put me in charge of 2, like, infants. Like, they had, this couple had twins. And... I don't know, they were probably like 9 months old each, and like they were like, "Oh yeah, a 12-year-old can watch her children."
Yeah,
like, like, she's from church, it's fine. What?
She takes a bottle and you just warm it up. You just squirt onto your arm, make sure it's not too hot. It's like, I'm a child.
Yes, like I'm 12. That was a lot of responsibility.
Way too much.
I mean, looking back on it, they should not have trusted me.
Like,
I mean, the kids are probably fine now. But
to like. The
burns have healed.
The girl my mom and dad hired to watch me was only 2 years older. Yeah. And just keep banging the mic.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
It's very sensitive and delicate machinery. I didn't mean to hurt you. We can do the whole thing. It's like ASMR. We'll be back with delicious dish. This is a very NPR kind of thing.
I will be back crinkling tissue paper.
Oh, I do that. I was like, I can just put my beard against his.
Me too. I got mine. Yeah, I got one.
We're losing everybody. We're losing.
I'm sorry. Refocus.
Anyways, the babysitter that they hired was 2 years older than me, and it was like, why is this person in charge? Who, like, was we used to play in the sandbox.
Yeah.
And like, this person has no authority over me.
No.
So.
But your parents thought
it wasn't.
They did.
It was just long enough until they felt like I was ready to start watching the kids, and I'm sure that was like 10 or 12 years old.
Yeah. I think about that now, and I'm like, ain't no way my kids are being by themselves when they're like 12. I say that now, but I'll probably be like, you're fine.
Yeah,
whatever,
you'll be
I don't
okay.
care.
They'll be fine.
Just lock the knives. It's cool.
That's the worst that could happen. Well, I wonder about that too, because now everybody has the cameras all over the house.
Oh,
are you like?
No, we're not cameras. We have one camera, still like the baby monitor, and really we don't even look at it. It's really just to listen.
Yeah.
Like, even though like our house is so tiny and like it's old, so you hear everything anyway. So it's just
Yeah.
like an extra echo that happens. But we don't like, I shouldn't say this. People are going to come to my house now, but yeah, like I don't have a ring or anything like that. And like,
I have one
I'm
of
fine with
those.
that.
I have one of those. I
You know,
like that
whatever.
just so I know my DoorDash is there. It's like I don't want to put my
We don't have a doorbell.
pants
I will
on.
say that,
Oh.
which is pretty interesting. Yeah, we've tried to find. We also our porch light never turns off. Like we've tried to find the switch for it. It's a mystery. Old wiring. But yeah, no, we don't have cameras or anything like that. Just whatever.
Yeah, just living that's the old person life, right? Like
Yeah.
we're just not.
I mean, I
we're
do
not
still
st-
lock my doors at
Oh,
night.
do you have Alexas?
No, I
Oh,
don't have
wow,
Alexas.
you are. Oh my goodness,
I
that's
know.
old school.
My kids don't have iPads
Oh
or anything.
no, I have
Yeah.
so many Alexas. She can hear me in every corner of the house.
Interesting.
I lean on her way too much. But,
Sure.
But it's just something I do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I understand why people are afraid of her.
Oh, sure. I mean, like I worked in data technology for a
Yeah.
while, and people like just having your smartphone with you, people know so much information about you.
There's
Any
no
app,
avoiding it.
yeah, you can't avoid it, and it's just you have to be smart about it, type of thing. Like apps, you give permission to. Everyone's like, yeah, I agree, but like you don't realize what you're actually doing. You're giving them access to like your locations.
Right.
So I don't know how people could get away with murder nowadays, but I don't know.
People keep thinking that they can.
I know.
And yet is there more murder now or less murder?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know the statistics on that. I'm not up to date on my crime reports, but that would be interesting to see, like how, because I know with like the Ring cameras and stuff like that, people think that that's actually helping, but it's not. Like studies have shown that it like doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no difference. It probably gives people more peace of mind, but
Right.
you know, I don't know. That would be an interesting thesis to look into. How if
I don't know how we
technology and things
started
like
talking
that.
about murder. Oh, we
I don't
talked.
know. Well, this room is very murderous.
It's very okay. You're not going to help me get any guests if.
I'm kidding. I feel very safe and very comfortable.
But I was telling you when we were walking in, I've been spending a lot of time here editing.
Yeah.
At like 2 or 3 in the morning when the place is completely empty.
Oh, you're gonna get murdered.
I'm going to get murdered here, and nobody's going to be able to hear me because it's completely silent from the outside of this room.
But your Alexa might be able to help you.
There's no Alexas in here, and maybe we should
like
have like an Alexa in here just in case.
Can't you like tag her on your watch or like?
Oh, is that?
I don't know.
A thing.
I don't know. Is it a thing? I don't know.
I think Siri is a thing on my watch.
Oh, Siri and Alexa don't talk to each other.
They don't like each other either.
There is a feud.
I do like how they have kind of a feud. Also,
that's great.
Do Siri and Alexa realize how stupid they are now? They're really dumb.
I don't know.
Like the AI that you can use elsewhere knows everything. And Siri and Alexa are like, I'll look that up for you.
Well, maybe they need to get on the AI train if they want to be super smart, like the woman in the Fifth Element movie, where she like learns new languages in like 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like The Fifth Element. It's one of my favorite movies.
It's a great movie.
I have a cat named Lilu.
Oh, nice. Multipass.
She's very much like Lilu. She doesn't like to be touched.
Yep.
She just wants to be left alone.
Yep.
Very mysterious.
Very intelligent, though.
Very intelligent. Oh, super intelligent. Mm-hmm. Constantly knows how to kill everybody in case things start going down.
100% Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, she's absolutely Lilu. It's one of my favorite movies.
It's a great movie.
It's yeah. I watch it many times a year.
It's pretty solid.
The soundtrack,
really good.
So good. I have it on vinyl.
Oh my!
It's amazing.
Nerd alert.
Kind of a nerd about the movie. I have three pieces of art on my wall in my room that are related to
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element.
Oh man.
Yeah, I collect
nerd.
Funko Pops. I have all of the Fifth Element Funko Pops, and they're pretty rare.
I mean, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen one.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't get them anymore. They're out of print. Mm-hmm. So, no, I'm a big nerd about the Fifth Element.
Well, I mean, Gary Oldman, one of his greatest roles.
That guy can do no wrong.
Yes, that's very true.
Because that, like, everything he does is completely different. Like look at him in that movie, and then look at True Romance.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, that's barely the same person. I don't know how people do that, but
I don't know.
He's just one of those actors who can just become somebody else.
He's really, really good at what he does.
Yeah.
So.
Do you feel like this? And we're going to change gears here a little
Let's
bit.
change them up.
Because like we've already talked about how you and I are sort of in that same age range of comedians here in the Michigan scene.
Yes.
And I don't know exactly when you started doing comedy, but it feels like you and I are in like a similar class where it's like we've started in the last 5 years together, and then like, but it also sort of feels like we're sort of on the similar tracks.
Yeah.
Because we're starting to book like similar gigs and getting weekends at Ridley's and stuff like that.
Yeah, I started, my 3-year anniversary will be May of this year, of 2024.
I like that, the way you said that, because that's a long way away.
I know, like, well, it's been so.
My 20-year anniversary will be May.
No, it's just I've just been doing it almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I started right after, like when I started. I took Bill's class at the Comedy Castle. And
Bill Bouchard.
And we were all still wearing masks, and we were like disinfecting the microphones and stuff in between. And
I think I was in Joel's class at that same time.
Yeah, like sitting really far apart from people.
And they're making us take the mic out, and we would switch the mics.
Did they have the little mic condoms?
They had the mic.
Had those. Yeah. And like,
this will save us.
Yeah, it was fine. And then like that was right when like vaccines, I think, were starting to become available, and the boosters and all kinds of stuff. So it was a really interesting time to do it. But I really obviously enjoyed it because I kept doing it. And then I took Joel's class and went here and there. Definitely one of the older people in my classes. But I think that can be an advantage because you have a lot more experience in life.
I'm glad you said it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do think, I mean, I've loved comedy all the time. I did improv in college and all kinds of stuff. And like, I always loved it, but I'm so glad that I didn't start doing it until much later in life. Because I think I'm a different person now. And the things I would have talked about back then, would I still be talking about them now? Probably not.
Yeah.
And like, just, I've grown so much as a person, and things.
I agree with you that the path of your life that leads you to do stand-up comedy at this stage of your life, you do go, you look at everything from a new perspective.
Yes.
And everything isn't like, oh, you guys on the dating apps or
sure.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of tropes that go along with younger comedians. And it's funny because like I watch an older comic that has been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And those are usually not to put too narrow. Like, I'm generalizing, obviously, but
of course.
But like there's the old comic tropes.
Sure.
Which are just as common as the young comic tropes.
Yeah.
So like if you start in your 20s and you've only been doing it for a little while, you're basically working your way up by doing a lot of the same material. But I do think we have a special perspective on comedy, having started right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 41 now. I was 38, almost 39.
Mm-hmm.
Math is not my strong suit. But I think starting back then, I think was beneficial because I did start it when my kids were really young, and I think my daughter had just like maybe turned 1. So just very different phases in life. And I did it because I wanted to do something specifically just for myself, something that I would do without my husband, without my kids. It was something just for me. Because my husband has, a plethora of hobbies. He was like, you need to do something, blah, blah, blah. And I'm very much a person where if someone had told me, like, let's go do an open mic, I'd be like, I don't know. But then the prospect of like a class where I'm held accountable and I'm
that's
actually like
interesting. Yeah.
have to go and do that, I feel much more obliged to do that.
So your first time performing was in the class?
Performing stand-up, yes.
Yeah.
I think a big thing with stand-up, like, I still get nervous, of course, going on stage and, like, whatnot, but I spent a lot of my career speaking in public. Like, that was a huge, huge part as being, like, a college recruiter and speaking to high school students, to parents, to professors, to all different kinds of audiences. So it wasn't necessarily, like, I didn't have to get over, like, the speaking in front of people fear.
I think that's an underrated part of the talent that it takes to become a stand-up comic.
Yes.
Right? Like I can look at the younger comics that don't have stage experience.
Sure.
Or even like whoever, whenever you're starting comedy, and if you don't have stage experience, you're basically learning how to be on stage while learning how to be a comedian.
Absolutely.
But if you do have like any kind of experience having a microphone in your hand, certainly doing anything, it's just it's like a step up.
Oh, for sure, because it's a if you've done school plays, dance recitals, like anything you can think of that's in a public setting. What really helped me, I'm going to nerd out here, was doing high school forensics, which was not dissecting dead bodies, by the way.
I know, I was always confused by that word.
Well, oh my God, I'm going to be such a nerd right now. Forensic actually comes from Aristotle, and it means to seek the truth. So when you're doing forensics as like the activity that I did in high school, you are seeking the truth in a piece of literature or seeking the truth in an oratory piece or something like that. So it was like, I know, competitive speech and debate. I'm such a nerd right now.
Well, you're teaching me something. I've never thought to look it up myself, but I've always thought like that's a weird word to use for that activity.
When you say forensic science, that means to seek the truth of what happened in a crime. So this was always really fun in like, especially college recruiting, because everyone wanted to be like a CSI person. And I was like, okay, well, they're like, I want to do forensics. And I was like, okay. And I had to like,
really not what you think it is.
I know. And I was like, oh my God, why don't you know this? You're 17. Come on.
You should have let them just do it.
Oh, I did. I let that go because I was like, no, they're going to leave your table. No one's ever going to come to your school. But I think having that experience of, I had to, basically one of my categories, I had to take a whole play and perform it by myself, but do it in 5 to 8 minutes.
Oh.
And create different characters and different things like that. But you're performing this piece in front of people. And I don't know about you, but for me, if it's a smaller group of people, like if it's only like 6 people, that is way more intimidating than like 600.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what forensics was. You were literally in classrooms with 5 or 6 other competitors, 1 or 2 judges, and maybe another like observer.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing this piece in front of your peers also. And it's kind of like comedy where you start seeing them over and over again in your like rounds and competitions. So you actually start to know some of the things that they're doing. And you're like, oh, that was different. Or, oh, they cut that. Or, oh, this is this. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. So any other forensics nerds out there, I'm all about it.
I love it. And I love how like I think you're the 9th guest on this this podcast. And I don't know when these are going to air or what order they're going to air them in. So maybe
in the future.
3rd. I don't know.
Future sometime.
We'll see how this ends. It's sometime in the future. But all of the conversations I've had with various comedians, they all have like this weird, different way of learning how to do stand-up comedy.
Oh, yeah.
And none of them are, I started doing stand-up and then now I'm stand-up.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone takes like, and I think that's something so important that people need to remember is that there's no one right path to doing things.
No.
Like, some people have taken Bill's class, some people haven't. Some people never take the class. Some people took a class somewhere else. Some people do improv. Some people are like, this was my 50th birthday wish, or my kids think I'm funny, so they bought me a class pass or something. Or I'm super hammered and I'm gonna go up on stage and find I like it. So I think that's really hard too with comics and comedians is that we have a tendency to compare ourselves to others.
Yeah.
And
we can't turn our egos off. That's just
I know. And it's so difficult, but I think, sometimes I have to remind myself that's not your journey. This is like you're on your own timeline. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be going out 6 times a week. Like that's for somebody else. That's not for you. So you're doing fine.
That's a recurring theme on this
Yes.
too,
Yeah.
which is all of us are sort of struck with that same part of the brain that says that we can't help it.
Yes.
When we see somebody else's name on a poster,
We're like, hey, that should have been me.
that should have been me.
Why are they on there?
Why did they get booked on that show that they asked to be booked on and I didn't?
Exactly. Wait, why don't they just know?
Why didn't the booker reach out to me, this person he does not know?
Why didn't they read my mind telepathically and just
Yeah.
know that I wanted to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can't help it.
I know, it's really hard.
But that's another part where I feel like if I had started comedy in my 20s, I wouldn't be in comedy right now.
No, I would have destroyed myself.
I would have destroyed myself,
Yeah.
and I would have just spent the whole time comparing myself to everybody who was getting what I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I would have given up so quickly.
Oh yeah, and what's that old famous saying? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Right.
And that's, you gotta.
No, I had to go through
Yeah.
the real shit in my life in order to feel confident enough, first of all, to be on stage.
Yep.
And I'm really glad that it happened this way.
Yeah.
Even though looking back, like I think I've mentioned this before. I used to live in Illinois, and I grew up just outside of Chicago.
Yep.
And if I had started doing stand-up around, I don't know, 1998, when I was 21 years old, there was a huge number of comedians whose names we know right now who were doing stand-up in Chicago at that time.
Yep.
And a lot of them are my heroes in comedy, like Pete Holmes, who is like a big reason why I'm a comedian. And like, would I have been able to hang with that group? I have no idea. I mean, obviously, that's a
shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. But also, like, I wasn't equipped to do it. What was that noise?
I have no idea. Oh.
Oh
my.
I didn't know it was coming. Oh, we're getting murdered.
There's an axe. Something is here. No, it was just my
soda tipping over.
It was just my soda. You cannot see the name.
Oh, I don't care about that. Okay. But you do notice I pulled all of the labels off of the water bottles just because they look better. Right?
Yeah, they do.
I think they look better.
I feel like if I took the label off of this, though, it would look very odd.
No, I totally agree with you.
Like, why is that the dark liquid?
A bottle of Coke should look like a bottle of Coke. Yeah. But a bottle of water, you don't want to know that it came from Meyer.
That's true. It came from Meyer. How dare you?
I know. I'm serving you Meyer water.
I will say this, like, beigey, brownish, because this is a vanilla Coke, the Superior.
I hate vanilla. I hate I don't know why.
It's the Superior.
The flavor of vanilla, it makes me almost retch. I don't know what it is.
I think that's so interesting. So many things are like that with certain people.
But like vanilla ice cream, fine. But like anything vanilla flavored, like a Coke we're going to add a little bit of vanilla to it. I can't stand it. It tastes tainted.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of taint? Is that what you're saying? It tastes like
taint.
It tastes like taint, and I don't like it.
I don't like the taste of most taints. I don't know if I'm going to edit around that.
Sorry.
It's okay. I was trying. I had cilantro recently.
Oh, are you a person where you have the enzyme where it tastes like soap?
Apparently.
Oh.
And I didn't know this because, well, first of all, I'm not really big on authentic Mexican food.
Sure.
It's just, I'm generally speaking, I'm kind of a picky eater, and that goes back to a lot of stuff that I have had to deal with through, like, from childhood.
Sure.
So, like, it's something that has followed me all along. I've learned how to be an adult with an adult palate very late in life. So, like, sushi and I didn't meet until my 40s.
Sure.
So now I love sushi. But, like, I also didn't, like, explore enough to know until very recently that cilantro was, like, that's the reason I don't like that.
Yeah.
So, like, I was at an authentic Mexican restaurant, which was fantastic, by the way, in Traverse City, and everything had cilantro on it.
Was it Red Mesa?
No, it was...
you don't have to.
It had the name Mama in it. Mama Lou's.
Ooh, Mama Lou's. Okay.
Yeah. A great place. And every bite that I had that had cilantro in it was like, I can taste the cilantro, but everything else is good.
Which the cilantro can get in everything.
It was all over.
Yeah.
But Can't be avoided.
It's like glitter.
Cilantro. What is the line? The glitter is the
herpes of the craft world.
herpes of the craft world.
Yeah.
Was that a Dimitri Martin?
I don't.
I think it's
I think it
Dimitri
is.
Martin.
I think it is.
Well, there's so many of those one-liner comics like Dimitri Martin and Mitch Hedberg.
Oh yeah.
Who are so important to
Yes.
who I am as a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
But that goes back to like Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright is like, I remember sitting around campfires as a kid and people would play Stephen Wright albums and we would just listen to one-liners around the campfire, which, I mean, that's
pretty great.
It's pretty great. So
my
I have
childhood was very different.
I'm not saying that this was emblematic of like what normal life was like, but I have memories of sitting around a campfire listening to Stephen Wright. And one-liner comics have always held a special place in my heart.
Yeah. And you do a lot of one-liners. And
I do. And I experienced this over the weekend. I did a show at a moose lodge in Fenton.
Okay.
And they generally liked me.
Yeah.
Because it was like an older crowd, and
sure.
I tend to do well
yeah.
With old ladies.
Old ladies love me.
Old ladies do love me. I don't know what it is, but like they like my brand of dirty humor.
Oh yeah.
Because it isn't like vulgar.
Yes.
But it's like
subtle,
we get to giggle
like,
and
it's a little bawdy.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good word for it. Like
yeah.
I do that bit about golden showers.
Yes.
And there was a woman sitting like right up front who lost her mind when I said golden showers. Like she had just discovered what it was. Oh my God, he's talking about it.
Oh my God.
But that same crowd, when I did my section of one-liners, it was like groans. It was like, oh, another dad joke, another dad joke. It was like,
I wonder what it would be like if...
I don't want the groan.
No, you don't want the groans. I mean, any reaction is good, but not usually a groan.
Well, the groan always feels so phony.
Yeah.
It feels like they're masking their true feelings about it.
Correct. Like that they really actually enjoy it and it's actually funny and it's okay to laugh at a dad joke because dad jokes are funny.
Uh-huh.
And it's not even
But it's like I'm not giving this guy the satisfaction of my laugh.
Mm-hmm. You gotta work for it, boy.
But that's the part of my act these days where I save up my fuck for that part of the set because there's a joke I do in there that is my favorite joke. And then when they don't give it the respect that it deserves, I get to say, fuck you, that's my favorite one. And I don't know, I look forward to that. That's for me.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I don't know, I think for me...
You're pretty clean on stage.
I'm
but in the
clean.
same way, like an adult clean.
Yes, like the themes I talk about are mature and things like I definitely say vagina and penis, but like, I mean, those aren't vulgar unless you're like thinking that they're vulgar, you dirty pervs. But I do tend to try to be a little bit cleaner. Like I feel for me, like if I say fuck or swear too much on stage, then it loses its meaning and its impact.
Absolutely.
You know? There's one joke I think I say where I'm like, I just said pussy into a microphone. Like, so I, like some of those things I try to limit. Because if I say fuck every other word, then it's just like, you're just saying fuck all the time. Yeah. And that loses its impact.
Yeah. I think the audience will give you a pass on one or two.
Yes.
If they're well-meaning.
Correct.
Like if they have a purpose.
Sure.
And not just like filler words.
And you want it to have that impact and you want it to not, again, fizzle out and lose its meaning. Yeah. So I do tend to try to avoid that a little bit, but
have you run into it at all where like a booker has told you to be clean?
No.
Okay. Because there's a couple of bookers around here that have like you find out when you get there that it's like by the way
there's children in the audience.
Thankfully, I haven't experienced that very much.
I've had that happen.
I had that happen at my show one time where there was a kid in the audience. And, you know, I made the announcement at the beginning, like we're going to get real adult in here. Yeah. So this is not the place for a kid. And I went up first to do my set.
Sure.
And I went in hard. Yeah. So
we're going to teach this kid some lessons.
It wasn't even, I'm going to teach these parents some lessons. And the kid was gone before I was done on stage.
Oh.
So it was like that was my
that was my gift.
That was my gift.
Parenting lesson.
I took a little bit of joy in that. But there are bookers who are like, yeah, we need this to be clean. And then you'll ask, like, what does clean mean?
Well, yeah, because it's like, because like you said, like I'm kind of clean. Mm-hmm. Is it just not swearing? Is it not being like going into dark stuff? Is it, like, certain topics?
Like church clean versus late night clean.
Correct.
Completely different things.
Very different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think people need to expand upon what they're actually looking for, and set up those expectations. That way, people aren't disappointed and no one gets like, well, F this, I'm not clean.
Yeah.
Like you're going to ask like a Bruce or Ella to do clean stuff. And they're, like, no, that's not really there.
But even like if they were to take out all of the swearing.
Yeah.
The subject matter
is
still as adult as anything else.
Correct.
So I think a lot of bookers try to say clean and then hope that covers it.
Yeah.
But I have encountered a couple of bookers who are like specific about the words you can't say. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't say those words, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, man. Like, what are you doing? Are we adults
Aren't we all adults here? This is a comedy show.
I mean, I do think about like, I mean, you had your around the campfire time, but me growing up, I remember like distinctly in 4th or 5th grade listening to the Adam Sandler comedy album with my older brother, and being exposed to that at a very young age. Like maybe we're giving those youngins some type of a lesson there. But yeah, I just remember all the time, like, welcome to Worcester, $1.25, please. And maybe it's because I grew up in New Hampshire, and then we had a very high affinity for Adam Sandler, but that was like a very distinct, like one of the first comedy things I very much remember listening to.
So like anything that I experienced as a kid was outside of like the rules.
Oh yeah.
So I remember I even like albums I would bring home, I brought home a Beastie Boys album that I listened to a couple of times and then it vanished. So I was like, what happened to my Beastie Boys tapes? They go, you're not going to see that again.
Yeah.
So like I grew up in that kind of sheltered. It wasn't necessarily sheltered, but it was like there was rules around
the content you could listen to. Yeah.
Which I was then hyper aware of.
Yeah.
Which now that I'm a comic, I really love playing with the rules, like playing around those rules.
Yes.
Which is why I think that some of my jokes are sort of like deconstructing the words we use. Like now in this world where basically everything can be porn, right?
Yeah.
What is the rule for that? If there's a name for like how like there's a porn category for literally everything.
Probably.
So like a lot of my jokes then end up sort of around that idea of like, does grandma know that when she says she's going to get a facial, she's saying probably the dirtiest thing she could ever imagine?
Exactly.
And I love that now. Like, I love sort of being able to turn the tables back on that.
Oh,
Because then you get to do it without even being dirty.
Sure, you're just like, I'm talking about grandma getting a facial.
Right.
What? She's going to get a facial, guys.
I'm pretty sure that's the title of this episode. I didn't know what I was going to go.
What? Grandma loves her pearl necklace, all right? Like, there's nothing dirty about it.
Absolutely nothing. Grandma she try and keep grandma away from cream pies.
Exactly. Just they spill all over her. It gets in her face. She
just can't get enough of them.
She can't. She just wants it. I think I try to do a little wordplay myself, talking about things, my love of wood.
It's a really good example.
Yeah. So, because I think, again, you're just kind of towing the line there and like going in and out. And, yes, you're saying one thing, but it could mean another. It's that bodiness, if you will. And
I think there's a really necessary part of it too.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I think of myself as being like comedians are jesters, right?
Yeah.
We're the ones who are supposed to be able to say the things that
People are thinking.
people are thinking, but they don't feel like they're allowed to say it.
Yes.
And to me, breaking down the barriers of language is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Good word plays.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like,
Double entendre. That's the word I was looking for.
yeah. So I think about how like language is then used to censor us. Like
Yes.
like if there's rules around language, then you feel like there's things we're not allowed to talk about.
Yep.
And that to me is like a sensitive issue for me. So any opportunity that I get to try and break down some of that, it feels silly in the moment, and people might not realize that's what I'm doing. But I like it. I like playing around with words.
It's so interesting you say that, like breaking down the barriers and things you're not supposed to talk about, which I think is why I like talking about some of the things I talk about on stage. Like I talk about my weird body now that I've had kids because like traditionally that's not something women have been told to talk about.
Uh-huh.
That's why you have all these women who are like experiencing all these crazy things going on with their bodies and they don't talk about them because nobody has opened the door to do that. So you're finding now like, Ali Wong, Eliza Schlesinger, like all of these people are starting to talk about those weird, odd things now that they've become parents because it is freaking weird. And I will tell you after every show that I do, I will get a mom afterwards like, oh my God, I had that same thing happen to me. Or my boobs are so weird now too. Or like, I had to wear a pelvic brace also. And like, so I think that comedy also lets people talk about issues that maybe they haven't felt like they were able to talk about before. Or like, I've seen couples where it's like, husband and wife, and they have a little kid or something. And the wife is like, laughing and being like, oh my gosh, I had that same experience, blah, blah. And the husband's like uncomfortable and super weird because he doesn't realize like that's what his wife was going through.
Of course, yeah.
And
because it's almost like if you can't talk about it with your spouse,
who are you going to talk about it with? Yeah. So like, it's very interesting that you say that. So I think comedy lets people talk about those awkward encounters, things that maybe aren't right, or things that have always been kind of taboo or pushed under the rug. It gives an opportunity to do that. And if I can educate, young men about like Kegel exercises or, because guys can do Kegels too.
I'm doing them right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing them right now.
I've been doing them for the last 50 minutes.
I mean, you got to tighten that tape, man. So
now we have a new title of the episode.
But it's just like, because for so long, all you hear, like, I don't know, I don't want this to go like being a woman in comedy, but it is like.
Oh, that was my next question. What is it like to be a woman in comedy?
Fuck you, Greg. No.
How do you balance it? How do you really just,
it's so tough with like the periods and the boobs and all the things, just, it's really hard to have a vagina sometimes. No, but I do think, like, I'm so happy to see more women doing comedy. And, like, I know there's some debate on, like, all-female lineups versus, advertising that versus, like, not, like, comedy should just be comedy. But, like, I will say, like, I look at things, like, and I see a lineup and it's all dudes. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's not that you should get on that lineup just because you're a woman, but that lineup, think about the people who are attending the show. Think about Ridley's, think about any of the comedy clubs. You have couples going out. You have girls' nights going out. You have things. So you want to make sure that you have a wide range and variety of comics that you're showing in order to, again, you want to appease your audience. Yeah. It's marketing.
It is interesting that you brought up the all-female lineup idea.
Yeah.
Right? Do you market it that way? Because I used to run a show. And I did several of those.
Yeah.
And I can tell you without any hesitation, those were my most well-attended shows.
Yep.
Because when you put it out there that we have all women on the lineup tonight, other women will plan their lives around that event.
Correct.
Like now it's a ladies' night. We're going to get all the gals together from the office and we're all going to go to the Women of Comedy show. And it did not matter if I advertised it as a Galentine's Day show, which was the biggest one.
I hosted one, I think. And it was so much fun.
Or I could just like, I wouldn't even.
You wouldn't even mention
specify
ladies' night. You would just.
I would just.
These are all my
These
comics.
are all the comics, and if you looked at the list, it's all women.
Yeah.
But I didn't call it like laughing with the ladies.
Exactly.
And I didn't have to because.
Yeah.
I think most audiences are savvy enough to pick up what anybody else is throwing down without the gimmick.
Yeah, and I will say, I think having those things and having women on lineups also makes women want to go see more comedy because they, you know, this is weird, but they also feel safe in that space too. And like, because there's somebody who's like me up there, you know, because I mean, I've heard a lot of dick jokes over the years, and not that there's anything wrong with those. It's just sometimes as a woman, like if a guy gets way too into it, like there was actually a class that one of Bill's classes, because I took his class twice. But the second time I was in a class and it was me and like all other dudes, and I left that class because I didn't feel comfortable because the guys, some of the gentlemen, they weren't gentlemen, but some of them on stage were talking about things that were not funny.
Yeah.
Like when you start a joke saying, I know sexual assault isn't funny and all, but hear me out. You have automatically...
That's a pretty decent premise. I got to get that into my phone.
Yeah.
I might do it tonight.
Jesus Christ. But if you think about like, you know, 1 in 2, 1 in 3 women have had some type of sexual assault experience, like you're automatically making half of your audience feel weird and unsafe. And like there's ways to talk about these topics that aren't triggering. But again, if you're a white dude up there who's like, just look at the dicks and they'll be able to tell which one raped them. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Like at that point I was like, no, I'm good.
I do wonder, because I don't think I ever heard any of the classes I took specifically say it this way. But there's an art to doing that kind of joke.
Yes.
That is it. You're not born with it.
No.
And you're definitely
very few people can do it.
You're definitely not ready to do it in the intro to comedy class.
No.
So
as like a 22-year-old dude.
So like, why not just say, look, hey, maybe not yet.
Yes. And
with
like
the rape joke.
And I do remember, like, Bill was great. He was, you know, he's never going to tell somebody that's a terrible idea. Well, maybe he will, but he really wants to, because he doesn't want to censor, but he wants to make sure that, hey, you want the audience to like you first.
Yeah.
You know, don't come out so strong with, like, I remember, like, one of the biggest flops I ever had was I had a joke about, like, well, women aren't funny type of thing. And I did it first, and I was like, that was a really poor choice because I just lost everybody there.
Right. But that's something you had to learn.
Yes.
So that you could correct.
Correct.
And what I like about, and this is, again, generally speaking about the system.
Yes.
Is that it is kind of self-correcting.
Yeah.
So the guys that go up there and do the jokes that aren't going to get laughs, but they can't understand why. It was so funny when they thought of it.
It was so funny when I did that really racist impression.
Yeah. And when I brought it up with all my racist friends, they laughed so hard.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I have seen enough of those come and go.
Yes.
That it's like.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a reason why they're still not doing it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm generalizing because you can always come up with exceptions to all of those things. And there's successful comedians that have made a whole life doing those types of jokes. And one could argue that they didn't, necessarily learn how to do them artfully.
Oh, sure. And you think about, like, if we're comparing comedians of the past and some of their sets from the past, how well do they hold up in today's judgment? And I feel like you can't necessarily judge, like, comedy from 35 years ago against today's standards and climate, Not to say that it was right back then to do it, but I don't know. It's just, it's a weird...
It is weird, and it's sort of like the opposite side of the coin of what we were just talking about. How like the purpose and job of a comedian should be to push those boundaries and sort of figure out what we're not allowed to talk about.
Yes,
but I guess like what we're looking for is like where does the line that we're all trying to play with become over the line, or even the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Like you're doing a harm to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, like how do you push yourself, but do it
And-
in a way that's not so far over it?
Yeah,
And like,
I think the like if you're using something as satire,
yeah,
like to expose where the
yes,
line is,
Yes.
often that's misconstrued
Yes.
in the media as being like this person did this.
Yes, I love when people
And-
take the Onion articles seriously. That's my favorite.
It's a perfect example.
Oh my gosh.
Of that.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
that was the purpose.
Yeah.
To show you where that line was.
To show you how ridiculous this
Yeah.
thing is right here.
But it's also like a sophisticated art form.
It very much is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that, like sarcasm and I don't know if I've talked about this. I might have talked about this before. But I actually studied, like in grad school, I tried to study humor and like sarcasm in the classroom, looking at like interpersonal communication, specifically instructional communication, and how like sarcasm is perceived. Because
I had no idea sarcasm was perceived differently.
well, here's the thing is that a lot of people, like a lot of studies will say that sarcasm is a misbehavior, meaning
Yeah.
that it's an instructor misbehavior. So if a teacher or an instructor uses sarcasm in a way, it doesn't always go over well, and it is seen as like berating or this or that. But if you use it in a way where you show like a video that's sarcastic or this or that, I mean, like you think about like The Daily Show, you think about like all these different forms of media and like shows and things like that that are coming out, and they're all based on like satire, sarcasm. How do you know, and people seem to enjoy them. Some people just don't pick up on the sarcasm. Or if it's directed directly at a person, that's not great.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think you're picking up on something really interesting. Like there are people who don't perceive things, and wherever you lie on whatever spectrum,
Sure.
we could be talking about anything. You may not understand. You may not be able to see that shade of color blue.
Just like my mother.
Yeah. So it's really interesting when like our culture, sarcasm is a huge thing right now.
Yes.
When you break it down, sarcasm is lying.
Yeah.
It's just a lie.
Absolutely. And you think about like how does that sarcasm, even in our language, how does that translate into a different language? Or if you're in a different culture, like how does that work? So I just think it's super interesting looking at that from a perspective of communication and looking at, you know, if you can establish rapport by being funny versus is sarcasm considered humor? Is it considered something entirely different? Is it, like you were saying, it's a lie.
I see it so often.
Yeah.
Where like people are like, yeah, I'm just a sarcastic person. It's like, oh, you're a liar?
Yeah. Oh, you're a liar. I have to watch myself because sometimes I do this with my kids. My kids will do something where I'm like, hey, don't put that there because it's going to fall. Hey, don't put that there because it's going to fall. And I say this like 25 times. And then they put it there and it falls. And I'm like, oh, look at that.
Oh, did it fall?
Yeah. Oh, look at that. And now they've started to pick up. So they'll say things back to me now like, oh, look at that, Mom. And I'm like, oh, shit.
So now that you're a comic, how often do you encounter people that are like, oh, yeah, somebody told me I could be a stand-up comic too? Because it's pretty common.
I've a little bit, like, honestly, not a ton. But I have had it, mostly strangers.
Yeah, like after a show.
Yes.
Like, yeah, so-and-so used to tell me that I should try stand-up comedy.
Yes. And then I'm like, well, you should do it. Try it. Go
absolutely.
for it.
Can't wait.
Can't wait to see what you got, man. And like, so cool. If that inspires someone to go take a class and maybe see what it's all about or go try an open mic, do it.
But I think part of the reason that people feel that way is because humor is ingrained into our culture.
Yes.
In such a way that you have to know the sense of humor of everybody you're around almost all the time.
Yes.
And especially in your group of friends, you all learn how to be funny in your own way. And probably in ways that you would never be funny with people that weren't in that group of friends.
Oh, absolutely.
And, right, like that's just the way, like, various circles just exist.
Yeah, like my husband knows specifically when I'm talking to one of my best friends because we have a weird voice and humor that we use with each other.
Yeah.
That I don't use with anyone else besides like her. So I think that's so interesting. And that's, I feel like how people bond. But if I went in and was like talking to you in that voice, you'd be like, what the fuck?
There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, like,
or
what is happening?
Or like, why is it's almost too familiar? Like,
yes.
Like often, like that's another thing you encounter is like people will think that you're in on the joke.
Yes.
When if you're not in on the joke, it sounds like that person's a sociopath.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%.
I really love thinking about this side of what stand-up comedy is.
Yeah.
Because it's so crucial to who we are as people.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think, you know, as I'm like interviewing for jobs and stuff like that, I've been unemployed for a little bit, but I've talked to people who have seen me do comedy, who have actually worked with me and who are like, you need to infuse what you do on stage into your life. And I've said this before, like when I was really down on myself, I was like, I want to be the person that I am on stage in my real life.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
that's funny. That's the opposite of the way most of us feel. I want to be who I am in real life on stage.
See, like when I'm on stage, like I typically will feel really confident, and like if I have a great set, it's like when I'm in that zone, you know, and I'm on that riding that high and like just going with the flow, and like people have told me I've never seen you be more confident than you are on stage. And I think for me, I want to infuse that into my, you know, personal life and being confident in my work and things like that. I tend to get a little more timid and things like workplace trauma. But I think for a lot of people, it might be the opposite. Mm-hmm. But
that's
for
really
me,
interesting. I like that perspective of it.
Yeah, it's like comedy's almost like it's my outlet. It's my time to. I do feel completely myself when I'm on stage. I will say that.
Well, I think that comes through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed watching how like various parts of your act have sort of evolved.
Yeah.
Since even seeing you for the first time, and it's really fun to watch you grow as a human.
That's what I like.
Grow as a comedian.
Aww, it's so nice. I like, and that's what I love. Like I have one of my friends. He calls himself my stage mom, and you know he's been with me on this journey. Like since I first started, like he came to one of my first shows, and now he like has seen me more recently, and he's like, you've grown so much, and you do this, and it's like I want to make people proud too. Like I think that's something we all want to do, because why else are we talking on stage into a microphone if we're not seeking approval? But I think that's a really cool part too, and not something that you get to have in a lot of other aspects in your life,
right? Where
people are like, wow, I've really seen you grow and progress, like doing this, unless you're like a toddler and you're
right,
growing up. But I think it's really cool to see if you keep practicing at something specifically and keep doing it, you will get better.
Yeah, I think that's clear when we watch you do it. It's always a fun way to give a compliment to another comedian. It's like, wow, you've gotten so much better.
You were like, terrible in the beginning.
I remember at the beginning. Yes. Boy, it was cringy.
I know. Well, it's so funny because I go back and like watch some of those from the beginning, and I'm like, ooh.
We all feel that way. Like I can watch my first clips that I had. I paid Daryl Bean to record this.
Yes.
Like, I paid somebody to do this. Why did I ever want to make?
Why did I put this online? I thought this was good.
Yeah. And I think that like when I can look at clips of myself from 6 months or a year ago and feel the same way, let alone 5 years ago. So it is fun to watch you and participate in watching what all of this becomes.
Sure.
And I think I speak for a lot of people around the scene when I say that we're all excited to see where all this goes.
Yes.
And anybody wants to follow you on social media, which one do you like to use?
I use Instagram, the Insta, and you can follow me at Meghan Me Laugh. That's MEGHAN Me Laugh.
Meghan Nyeste, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Greg. I'm so glad you're here.